Well, welcome back to Contrastly. My name's Simon Plant, and today we're going to do a HDR panoramic from an aerial photograph. Well, welcome back. In the last video, we did some retouching on an aerial picture, and I thought in this episode we go a little bit further and do a little bit more developing and processing, a bit more relevant to the actual drone picture, if that makes any sense. I'm fairly new to drone photography, as I may have already told you. I've passed my commercial drone certification, so I'm very much still sort of feeling my way through it all and trying to juggle flying with taking pictures and video and all that sort of stuff. But so I'm not, by no means an expert, but some of the stuff is very relevant to any other photography. And today's videos are one of those. It involves doing HDR, which I'm sure we've covered before, and it involves doing some panoramic stuff as well, which I wasn't too sure would work very well with aerial photography because the drone that I use, a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, is obviously it's got a fixed camera on it, a 20 megapixel camera, a pretty good resolution camera, but you're stuck at a 24mm lens. And previously, probably maybe less so now, it used to be a bit more difficult to stitch a panoramic with a wide-angle lens. So I wanted to try it because 20 megapixels is quite a lot of resolution anyway. But it's good to know what you can get away with. So I had a go at that, and also with the DJI app, the camera app, it enables you to shoot some exposure bracketing. So imagine using this drone and you're trying to keep an eye on your elevation, your distance, and all the other bits and pieces that with actual dealing with the actual flying of the drone. Plus, you've got to keep an eye out. What's around you. Is there any animals coming towards you? Is there any other aircraft in the air coming towards you? So you've got to be aware and try and juggle several things at the same time. So it is a bit difficult. So the last thing I want to do really is worry about exposure and stuff too much once I've got the thing in the air. You want to check it. You've got a histogram on there, so you can hand check the histogram. But one of the settings on the app is exposure blending, where it will take either 3 or 5 exposures of the scene all in a row. So it means that if you are a little bit off your exposures, it doesn't matter. Or if you've got a scene like this where the sun's coming up and it's quite contrasty, again, you don't have to worry too much. You can do an exposure blend in post or a HDR or whatever you want to call it, and bring it all together. So it's a really good little feature. So I thought we'd do a video on this to show you in real life terms how this works. So first of all, why do HDR or exposure blending, whichever you want to call it, and why do panoramics? Well, the panoramic one is a bit more simple. I probably wouldn't need to be honest with you. A 4mm lens is quite wide, especially for the sort of stuff that I normally shoot. I don't normally shoot that wide, but it's a fixed lens, focal length lens on the DJI Phantom 4, so can't zoom in or get around that. It's a fixed lens and probably plenty wide enough, but it's just nice to see what will work. I've heard you can do these sort of things with the DJI Phantom, and I wanted to try it. The problem with wide angles, generally they never used to do panoramic stitching very well. They never came together very well. But I think the software's got much better over the last few years, and that's probably less so of the case anymore. So there isn't probably many times I want to do panoramic with the 24mm lens, but you never know, and it's good to see what it's capable of. So it's more curiosity than anything else. The HDI though is a completely different ball game. As I said, flying a drone, and there's a lot involved. You've got your monitor, which you need to obviously keep an eye on your elevation, your distance, and all your battery, and all these type of things, as well as be aware of what's around you. If there's any animals coming towards you while you're flying, and more importantly, any other aircraft that may come across your airspace. Where I live, there's a lot of helicopters, a lot of helicopter training, and although on this particular day I knew I was pretty guaranteed almost that we know none of the training flights going on. Normally I would, even if I was outside the area slightly, I would still maybe ring the air traffic control just to check and make them aware of what I'm doing. So you're trying to multitask several different things. So to be honest, the last thing I want to do is to be worried about my exposure too much. I've got a histogram on the DJI Go app, so you can keep an eye on the histogram and you can set your exposure, but then I don't really want to be fiddling around with that. So this is where this technique comes into its own. On the app, you can do a 3-frame or a 5-frame auto exposure blend. So it will take 5 different pictures, as in this case, at different exposures, and then we can do like we would normally do then is come into Lightroom or Photoshop and we can do a HDR stroke exposure blend of those files, which is great because on this image particularly, apart from sort of multitasking, the light was quite contrasty, the sun was coming up, it was dawn, and again, it's just great to have that capability of sort of worrying about the exposure after the fact. Now, the camera also shoots 20 megapixel RAW files, so we've got quite a bit of resolution there already, and we've got the option of doing a lot more adjustments in post, being a RAW file, so that's really good. So that's the main reason I would shoot auto bracketing. It's just because it's just a bit of a safeguard, and why you got the expense of getting this thing up in the air and getting to the location. It's not like being on the ground. You can quickly move around and stuff. It's a bit more difficult, so better to shoot like this than and not be worried about it. So how do we do this? Very simple. I said you set up the app and it'll shoot 5 frames, launch your camera, and you fire off and it'll fire 5 frames. So this one's 1/20th at f11, 200th at f11, 1/80th at f11, 1/320th at f11, 1/50th at f11. So quite a nice wide range of exposures there. So once we're in Lightroom, all we've got to do is select the 5 frames, right click, go to Photo Merge and HDR. Now, one thing I should mention, on this day it wasn't particularly windy, it was perfect really for sort of flying the drone, and there wasn't a lot of movement in the leaves on the trees, etc. And so I've probably got to pick a good day to do this. If it was windy, the drone's going to be moving around a little bit more. Might not be a major issue for the HDR, depending on how windy it is. But when you try and do the panoramic, it might, it might cause issues. But this is why we've got this deghost amount here to help us out. So I normally don't need to use this. I'm normally on a tripod and on the ground, but being aerial, it's good to have a look. On this one, it doesn't look like really it's going to be needed, but you can go through the settings. It will give you, if you tick this box, show you an overlay of anything that's moving. I would expect there to be a bit of movement, possibly in the water, be it reflections or actually moving water. So we'll see if that pops up on the preview. No, it hasn't. And all I'm going to do now is to click Merge. While it's doing that, I'm now going to select my other 5 frames. So I've done these frames. I've then rotated the drone, rotated it around to the left slightly. Not a lot on this picture, I'll be honest with you, not a lot, but just rotate it around a little bit more. So we've got, you can see from, if I just get this picture up a minute, let me get these 2 frames up so we can see if we can see. A second. You can probably see from here the distance there, and on this one obviously I've closed that distance because I've rotated the camera this way to give us a little bit more of this side. Now, one of the reasons I probably did that in hindsight was I didn't really want to get much closer or further back away from this tree. It's quite the focal point in the image, but I did want to get a little bit more of the sunset or sunrise, in. So this is why I thought I'd rotate the drone. So now I can repeat the process with our other frame that I've rotated the drone on. Right click, Photo Merge, HDR again. And again, we'll let it run through the creation process and gives us a preview in a second. And we'll have another check through. It remembers the last settings you used, which was I think on low or none. Can't remember, but I think it's on low. And we'll see if any ghosting appears on this frame. Might be in a bit of a gust of wind or anything. And again, nothing on that one to worry about, so that's great. If there was something and you've got this box ticks, you'll see an overlay mask around where there's an area of problem. Sometimes you can try and reprocess the images. Maybe try knocking out one of the frames. I have heard, and I have tried this a couple of times, and it does seem to be true, that you can get away with just 3 exposures with in Lightroom creating HDRs. So maybe 1 exposure at normal, 1 exposure at 2 stops under, and 1 at 2 stops over. I'm still kind of I tend to overshoot, should I say, but that's another thing you could try, because obviously you've got less chance of things moving with 3 exposures. But I'd still shoot the 5 anyway, especially when I'm using the drone. It just gives you another options. You can always chuck them out if you don't need them. So there we go. Click merge, and again it's going to create the HDR and spit that out. Okay, so we're back and we've got both our HDRs now processed. So very simply, the next step is to select both the images here, like so. Right click, again go to photo merge, and this time we want panoramic, and we're just going to let that do its stuff automatically. Don't need to mess about with any of these particularly, and click merge, and that should pop out with our panoramic in a second. There we have it. So let me just select these 3. As I said, this wasn't a very wide panoramic, it's quite a subtle one, but you'll see here's our finished image, slightly cropped top and bottom, and we've got the space here on this side over here, and on this edge it's not a lot, but we've added a little bit on the end here, which was cut off in this one on this end, if that makes sense. So that's our finished image. So that's actually giving us a little bit more resolution. Not that you probably need it from a 20 megapixel camera for the most part, but again, it's useful to know it's there in a situation where you might need it. And obviously, again, the HDR is very handy. We can now go in and start to develop this as you would do any other image, and bring out a bit of ambience in the picture to your own taste. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just a little bit of an insight into some of the functions if you've got a drone and you're starting like me to explore its possibilities. It's nice to know from a photographic point of view there's some flexibility there in capturing your images. Until the next time, thanks for watching. And before we go, here's the finished image processed within Lightroom.